Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast, where we explore the mindset, skill set, and habit set of leadership communication. Using these tips, techniques, and tactics, you'll be able to talk like a leader to build better relationships and get more done. Your host is Guy Harris, who has more than 20 years of combined professional and military experience in consulting, coaching, and training in areas like team and interaction dynamics, communication strategies and tactics, as well as emotional intelligence. Take it away, Guy.
Hi, this is Guy Harris. Welcome to the Talk Like a Leader podcast. This week's episode is titled Disagree Without Being Disagreeable. Let's first look at the definition of those two words, disagree and disagreeable. To disagree says that you have or express a different opinion. It's simply to have a different perspective, that is, disagreeing. Disagreeable, though, is defined as being not pleasant or enjoyable, unfriendly or bad-tempered. And here's the difference. It is possible to have a different opinion without being unfriendly or bad-tempered. It is possible to see things in a different way without being unpleasant or not enjoyable. The idea today is to figure out ways to disagree without being disagreeable. Part of being able to do that successfully comes down to the idea of separating the argument, the issue, problem, the concern you're addressing from the person with whom you are interacting. What we want to do is to honor and respect the person, even if you disagree with the specific message or concern or solution that they're proposing. I'm reminded of a conversation I had with my daughter Lydia one time. We were at a conference. I don't remember exactly how I phrased the idea. I now remember the way Lydia told me I could rephrase it, and I was trying to talk about this idea or simply summarize this idea of separating the argument from the person who was making the argument. And she said, "Dad, the idea is to prosecute the problem, not the person." And so that's really the idea of disagreeing without being disagreeable. We want to prosecute the problem, not the person. I don't think I've ever been involved in or observed a situation where a person was thoroughly convinced to consider another person's point of view when direct disagreement or argument was the primary approach. I have seen acquiescence. I've seen people shut down. I've seen people withdraw. I've seen people disengage from the conversation. I've seen people give up the fight. I don't know that I've ever seen true mind change or agreement reached when direct disagreement and argument was applied. I'll acknowledge that if the goal is to, quote, win the conversation and force the other person into silence and to shut down, then by all means, argue away. If your goal, however, is to persuade and influence, to get buy-in for change efforts, to collaborate on a problem solution, to create engagement and energy and cooperation as you move forward together, then I would suggest being careful of using direct disagreement as the way to make your case. Now, I'm going to offer a caveat here because I think this is true for everything we talk about on the Talk Like a Leader podcast. There is nothing I can say in a brief 8 to 12-minute episode that is going to fit every single situation you'll ever face in life. I can talk about general concepts and principles that apply to many situations. So I'll acknowledge that depending on the nature and the depth and history of your relationship, if you have a highly trusting relationship where the other person knows your motivations and intentions very well, then you can probably directly disagree. The relationship will handle it. In most cases, and with most people, you probably won't have the history and depth of relationship necessarily to directly confront and produce a change in perspective. Now, there are many really good strategies for disagreeing without being disagreeable, and I'm not going to explore every way you can do it well. I am going to offer one suggestion that can help in many, although, as I've already said, not all situations. It's really 3 steps. And the first step is to demonstrate that you understand the other person's position or how they came to that point of view, or possibly where you agree with their position. So it's demonstrate understanding or understanding how they came to that conclusion or agreeing with some element of their position. So the idea is to find a way to agree to start the conversation. It might sound something like this. I think I see your point. It sounds like your concern is blank. If I understand correctly, your concern or your opinion or your perspective is blank. Let's see if I understand correctly. It looks like or sounds like your concern or your issue or your frustration is blank. Or you could say something like this. You make a good point about blank. I agree with you. That is a major concern. I agree that the issue you raised is something for us to be concerned about. I like your idea about. See, the point here is to find a way to affirm, to agree, to point to where you have similar perspectives, to indicate that you understand. So you're starting the conversation or starting the comment on a positive note. That's the idea. Then you want to bridge to the third step. So first step is find some way of agreeing or affirming or showing understanding. The second step is to bridge to the next part of the statement with and. The word and. You could also use in addition or also. Now you want to be aware of the words but, however, and although, and yet. But, however, although, and yet tend to negate rather than build or bridge. The point is to agree and then bridge to alternative statements, alternative viewpoints, alternative data, unaddressed concerns, that kind of thing. So you're bridging to it rather than negating everything that came before it. You're bridging to the new perspective. And then step 3, you want to offer any additional information or ask any clarifying questions or permission you need or offer additional perspective. And you might say it this way. Here are some things I see. Or here's a concern I have. I'm concerned we might be missing blank. Would it be okay if I share what I see? I'm wondering, does that approach address blank issue? So it might go together something like this. You make a good point about blank. And I'm wondering, does that solution address this part of the problem? Or, if I understand correctly, your perspective or your concern is this. And here are some things I see that might be worth discussing. So we're trying to agree and find places of agreement and then bridge to the future or bridge to alternative viewpoints or perspectives so that we can disagree without being disagreeable. Now, I've given you some ideas here, and every situation has its own subtlety and nuance. So I don't propose that what I've said today is going to address every situation you'll see. I do think you will take the mindset behind it, really summarized by the quote that my daughter Lydia gave me, prosecute the problem, not the person. If you can master that art, if you can find ways to agree and then bridge and then offer, you can talk like a leader. This has been the Talk Like a Leader podcast. You can listen to this show every week wherever you get your podcast. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm Guy Harris, and thanks for listening.